I'm going to call this meeting to order. And we have our usual announcement about this is a Zoom meeting. It is recorded. It's electronic. If anyone who doesn't wish their image or their message to be recorded, it's subject to the Freedom of Information Act, then you should not join the meeting. Otherwise, you will be recorded. And if you have any questions about that, you can talk to our Deputy Corporate Officer. Let's see. So call to order. The first thing we have is public input. So if anyone wants to speak, they can raise their hand, and we will give you 2 minutes, which will be timed. Oh dear, let me get my timer up. 2 minutes, and then we will move on. Hold on, I should have done this before. Sorry. There are 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, so we have, I'm not sure who came in first, so I'm just going to call on P guest talking permitted. I'm not sure who that is, but please tell us your name and give us the benefit of your views.
Yeah, this is P guest. My name is Paul Evans. I represent the Roslyn Ratepayers Association. It's a newly formed organization that's just started up in Roslyn. I've just got a couple of questions going forward that perhaps one of the councillors could answer for me. The first one is primarily, why is this meeting being called at 11 a.m. in the morning when kind of the ability for people in the public to actually get access to the council in this particular venue would be limited by the fact that they have to work and the such like? I've also got another question primarily based on, it goes like so. Why is this project going ahead during COVID when the community of Roslyn is under financial stress? And also I have another question. Would you be able to state why the insurance money for the old City Hall was not used to repair the building? And yeah, and finally, why has the city consistently refused to take this project to referendum? I'll leave it with you guys to hopefully answer those questions.
Okay, well, I'll give a stab at it, and then anyone on council who wants to join in, or staff. First of all, basically, we had approved this project at our last meeting, and we're having this special meeting because there was some transcription errors that happened in the proposal that we had seen before. So we want to make sure that we've got all the correct numbers in line. The project is still within our budget. That's in our financial plan, our 2021-2025 financial plan. So it's not extraordinary in that regard at all. Unfortunately, the price is a little higher when you I don't know, mix up the numbers. Sometimes it goes that way. The other thing is that it's a little bit higher because the interest rate, oops, sorry, that was your time, and I'm not cutting off your questions. A little bit higher because until you fix the interest rates formally, they can fluctuate. Now that, so the interest rate was a little lower and now it's higher. And then there's some property tax transfer charges that have been added in that we're still, I think and staff could address this, but that affects the housing portion of the project, and they are still talking with BC Housing about how that will look. The reason we had to do it today is because we were about to get the project underway. It had been approved with all of the numbers that we thought were the correct ones until they were corrected in this report at our last council meeting, which was May 3rd. And so the project starting up on the 18th, I think, is hopefully the first action that's going to be there. That would have been fine, but now we wanted to get these corrected approvals done before the project actually starts. Our next council meeting is Monday, the 17th, which would be kind of late to do this approval. So really, the approval is not a lot different than what we approved at our last meeting, but because of those errors in transcription, we wanted to have the correct documents in front of us. Doing it at 11 o'clock in the morning was just when almost all counselors were available. And yeah, I think that's that. In terms of doing this project in COVID, This project has been underway for a number of years. It is going to benefit our community, by providing some affordable housing. It's giving people work, and it's actually, we have if you look at the financial plan, you can see where this project is being paid for, and it is through, we're using, insurance money, we're using sale of the old city hall, sale of some other excess property that we own, and some reserves. This is well within our budget. We are not stressing the city financially, and it's a good project. We're going to end up getting tax revenue from the housing portion of it. Our portion of it is currently to 3.3 million, and that's all in. And it's been, it's been well executed in terms of following all the process and procedure that we're required to do under, for a local government community charter. Let me see what else. Oh, the insurance money that we didn't use to fix up the old building because we were already looking at needing a bigger space, and we could put that insurance money. We used some money to fix it up to a certain, to get it to sell, right? But it actually was too small for our needs even before there were issues with it. So it just made sense. Plus it made sense because the two projects combined can go forward. One or the other probably wouldn't. We weren't going to give away land to the affordable housing project without having a benefit for us, and for us having the city hall there and then eventually getting tax revenue on that project makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of synergy between the two projects. And consistently refused to have a referendum. Yeah, I mean, we felt that this was we were elected to represent the best interest of the community. We feel this is a good project. We didn't see, a lot of benefit in having a referendum. So, I mean, I don't really have any more than that. Does anyone on council wish to add into my comments? So you can raise your hand, or staff, you can raise your hand. Andy.
So also related to the construction during COVID time, I believe, Paul, you had asked regards to that. The province has given the okay for the construction industry to continue through the pandemic, recognizing that it's such an important part of our economy. So there is no restrictions there. And of course, with COVID, all contractors who will be on site and within the community will be following all the regulations and protocols that are set out by the provincial authorities on that. So yeah, we're within legal auspices to be able to continue with this project at this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else wishes to comment on Paul's comments, or I'm going to go to our next speaker and get my timer ready here, and this will be Andrew Zwicker.
Hi guys, how's it going? Great to see all you guys. I haven't seen you in real life for ages. And I often miss sitting in your guys' seat there. But one of the questions I was keen to run by you guys, I was curious if there might have been an update since back in my old days there. But I know back when we were in the early stages of this project, we did a feasibility study to figure out ultimately what would we have to rent out the bottom floor space to make a business want to get in there, because at that stage we were considering commercial tenants. And the number that came back at that time was roughly was slightly more than 10 times the average or rental space that you could currently get in town. And so when I first heard that, I thought, well, why would City Hall ever pay almost more than 10 times the rate of current going rental costs just to fill the space? So I was curious, what is going to be the operational cost for moving forward to have City Hall in that space? And if it's still at that crazy number, which I believe at that time was up into the $30 plus per square foot, why does it make sense for City Hall to pay such crazy high rental rates when there are much more affordable options? I know that at that time there was a couple of potential tenants that were considering the space, and when the feasibility number came back with the cost it was going to afford them, they went and found other alternatives in town and did more of a campus style approach. So I was curious, what is going to be the square footage operational cost of the City Hall? And if it's still that crazy high number, why does it make sense for City Hall to pay a number that the market would never pay itself?
Okay, thanks for that question. And actually, I don't have that at my fingertips, and I'm not sure that staff would either right at this moment. But Brian, we don't have full staff on this meeting today too, but I don't know, Brian, do you have any comments on that?
No, that's a lot of stuff to look into. Basically, when it comes down to when we looked at this, one of the options was that we might potentially own the property and then we would rent it out. And obviously what Andrew had mentioned is true, is that what we could afford to rent it out at to make sure that we didn't lose any money on the project compared to what people are willing to pay. It was not jiving at all. The second idea was that, well, we would potentially assume the construction costs of the $3 million, give or take, of that project. And then maybe we would be able to find an investor to take over our funding contribution of that project. So they would be owner operator of the the facility. Again, those construction costs were there because no one has the capital dollars to do that kind of thing. So we basically said, and with the amount of money that we have to put into a new city hall, or sorry, to rebuild the old city hall compared to what we have to do for a new city hall, the business case scenarios made sense in our asset management planning to look at trying to consolidate this with a bigger project to bring in the taxation. And then we would take a look at what our alternative options would be for surplus land. So no, from an operational perspective, the new city hall the space proposed is a little bit bigger than the old city hall. Obviously, there's energy efficiencies in regards to the operational activities of that. So from a net perspective of what it costs us to run a new city hall compared to the old city hall, I'm sure it'll go up a little bit, but it won't. It's not like we're going from 0 to 100 on operational costs from a city hall perspective.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. Would anyone like to speak?
No answer.
Like to speak? Okay. Andrew, do you still have your hand up?
Well, that sounds like a non-answer. That sounds to me like we don't know what the operational cost is, and let's just go for it.
No, we did have a report that compared the two, and my recollection of it, and it is a while ago, right? It's not on the agenda tonight, today. So I didn't look that up, but it was very similar. It was just a little bit more, on the operational part of it, and we're not actually paying rent because we do own it. I think, Stuart, you had your hand up. Did you have your hand up? Yes, Stuart.
Trying to work out how to
We lost your
operate my new mobile app out here. I appreciate your point, Andrew, but I think, oh, have you lost me again?
No, we can hear you. We just can't see you, but that's okay. Go ahead and speak.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I appreciate Andrew's point, but I think it's too narrow a focus because the reality is we do need to have a city hall that meets the needs of our operations. And when we evaluated the various options, considering, yes, the operational cost of the building over time, but also the ways in which we're going to pay for it and the revenue we're going to get from taxes over time and the sale of the properties, we didn't have an option of not having a city hall. We evaluated the realistic options that we had in front of us, and this was by far the option that made the most sense of the practical options that we actually had. We don't have the option of saying, oh, we're not going to have a city hall. We're going to have to pay for it somewhere. And we considered all those different moving parts in their totality. And, we were presented with, measures that evaluated those options. And this was clearly the most advantageous for the city over time.
Okay, because I'm thinking one of the potential tenants at that time also went through that same process, and the solution they came up with was that this does not make sense for them, and they went to a more of a campus type approach, which in a small downtown like Roslyn makes beautiful sense.
Yes, that's true, except we're using property that we own, which they didn't own it, and it's not practical to have a campus layout for a city hall. People need to know where to go when they want to speak to somebody at the city, and it's a different kind of a model from a
I guess because I support the project from affordable housing, and I like the idea of bringing the taxes online. I think it would help a lot of people in town get on board if we could come out there and say this is what the operational cost is going to be. So I think that's what's missing. I think if we put that out there and it was a reasonable number, it would really help move the project forward in the eyes of the public, I think.
Okay, well, thank you. That's a good suggestion. I mean, there'll be plenty more.
Andrew,
oh, sorry, Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers were released. They were very, very clearly made available. The long-term consequence, paying rent at the time, we considered all of the various ways in which we could solve the needs of the city. And this made the most sense, you know, and yes, you can pull out one variable and say, well, what about that? But it has to be considered in the overall context. If we didn't make the affordable housing project possible, if we didn't use this land, we would have lost out in other ways.
Yeah. Dirk, you had your hand up.
Oops. Yeah, I think the question for me, I think we keep talking about operational costs, but are we talking just utilities and hydro and internet? Things to me that would be relatively equal regardless of where we were, probably less if we were all in one location.
I guess I would kind of go back and pull up the feasibility study that now must be 6-7+ years old, that ultimately came back and said to make this project financially feasible, you'd have to rent this space out for greater than $30 per square foot, when the current going rate in town is less than $3 per square foot.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
I can't relate the potential rent to ownership or anything like that. I'm lost on
Yeah,
that.
I think we might be going around in circles here, and I'm not sure we're going to satisfy you, Andrew, on that. I think Stuart's point of that we did look at the options, and it did make sense, right? And a lot of things have changed since 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, when that report came out, and part of that was the affordable housing and the grants that came in on portions of it, and we're also looking to hopefully get some more grants on energy efficiency things that are. I mean, it's a very good project. It will be good for the community. It's, nothing's perfect, right? Nothing's perfect, but I think we feel confident that this will benefit us.
I appreciate all your hard work on it, and I know from being on that side how difficult it can be, and I appreciate all you guys' hard work. I just would strongly caution that I believe there's probably still a better alternative out there, but I'll leave that with you guys to handle. But I think if you can put out what this is actually going to cost operationally, that would probably help people get on board. So,
Okay.
But good luck and congratulations on all your good work.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Now I see Paul has his hand up again, and I will let him speak this time, but we actually don't usually do that. So, but there doesn't seem to be anyone else speaking. And then if there's no one else, I'd like to get on with the meeting. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just a quick one. Based on the fact that the whole way that businesses and operating in this day and age because of COVID, would it be a consideration to actually, because there are so many people working from home and the such like, kind of the need for office space is certainly something that's possibly going to change and remain changed for time to come. But would it be a consideration just to repair the old hall and actually use the building that you guys are constantly at the moment operating from in combination, and just continue like that, and maybe kind of use the space in the under space for either parking, which seems to be kind of less than it seems to be a bit of a problem up there, and such like. In other words, would you guys consider changing the plan for the building based on the fact that kind of even the way that people do business now during COVID has changed kind of phenomenally?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we can consider things, but honestly, that's not practical. I mean, we really have a housing shortage in this community, and without the first floor, the housing project can't go forward. To turn that into a parking lot, it would be a real. I think it would be a real detriment to the community, and I think it wouldn't benefit us. I mean, you have to look at the whole package. People pick out City Hall, or they, we've had lots of people say we love the affordable housing thing, but we don't think City Hall. We don't want you to build a building. We want you to fix the old one or whatever. Well, we already outgrew the old one. Working remotely, we had done that, and in the pandemic, it wasn't ideal for our staff. I don't know if Brian wants to comment on that, but there's so many things that go on with a city. Oops, sorry, timing myself. So many things that go on with a city that aren't conducive to that the way a lot of other businesses are. We are not independent contractors or tech business, or there's just a lot, right? So I think at this point, that's I mean, you get points for creativity, right? But I don't think it's a viable solution.
Would it be a consideration then to actually have affordable accommodation on all 3 floors? Because that basically means that you're actually upping the amount of available accommodation, be it affordable or low income or even pensioner. So basically, kind of it's more in touch with the overall feeling of the community as opposed to one specific group that are looking for affordable accommodation. Because you've got to remember that we do have low income earners, and we do have a situation in Roslyn where kind of pensioners are finding it extremely hard to find accommodation going forward, especially in places like the Ealing Lodge, where you have a waiting list of over 80. And I don't know how it is with the Gold Manor apartments and other places. So there's certainly a need for accommodation in the city, but perhaps you guys would consider offering the whole building as accommodation as opposed to putting City Hall there.
Well, you can't actually build housing on the first floor given the nature of the site under the legislation, right? So it's not considered okay for housing. So that doesn't work. And as far as seniors living in the building, you know, I mean, that's up to the housing society of how because they run the building, they run and own that portion of that's not connected to the city in that regard. But it's, you know, they put their eligibility requirements in. Okay, I'm going to call on Stu, and then I think Dirk, and I missed another hand. I'm not seeing you guys' hands stay up, except I do see Stu's hand stay up. Go ahead, Stu.
Yeah, look, I just think people are missing the essential point here is that, you know, yes, it sounds like a lot of money, but a lot of that money is coming, especially towards the affordable housing portion of it, is coming from grants. You know, it's meeting our community needs. We do need affordable housing. We want to have that site developed in a way that adds value to the community. And when we considered all the moving parts together, the tax we're going to earn over time, the sale of the property, all these, the tax we're going to earn off those properties that we sell. When we consider all those variables together over the life of the project, it's going to actually make us money. It's going to be a net positive to the city. People are looking at it as like, oh my God, you know, $3 million sounds a lot of money with all the things I could do with that personally. But that's not what we were thinking about. We were thinking about all the parts that go into it over the life of the building. And when we looked at it, this was not just the best of the options that we considered. It was actually going to be, when we considered all the value we were going to get over time, it's actually going to be a net positive to the community. And, you know, when people who understand these things look at it, when other municipalities look at what we're doing here, the fact that we've been able to put a city hall in under an affordable housing project and get all those economies, it's like, what, you're actually going to get a new city hall, you're going to meet community needs for affordable housing, you're going to use this old brownfield site, and over the life of the project, you're actually going to make money. It's like a no-brainer. If people understand the parts, and I understand it's complicated, and it's not the same as running your home finances, but if you understand all the parts, it's a no-brainer. It's obvious. That's why all the people on council, who all come from different backgrounds, we've looked at this project, and when you understand all that, it makes sense. I don't know what more I can say.
Something I would like to see then, if that's the case, would you be able to make the figures public so that I can actually see for myself and for the rest of the people, so that we actually have the dollars and cents figures, so that it can make sense to us. I'm sure that
the figures are in the public realm, Paul, but I would refer you to the report that we reviewed, where all these costs and advantages to the community were calculated using widely accepted measures for measuring these things. I can't remember the exact reference, but I'm sure we can arrange that to make those available, because, you know, you can see the same figures we saw. I'm not an expert in these things. I was provided with, you know, reports measuring these things by staff, which made it very clear. And when all of us reviewed it, it made total sense.
Okay. Look, I think you've perhaps missed one specific measure that's kind of quite important in my mind, and that is the measure of public opinion. If we'd have gone ahead and had the referendum, I'm sure that this project would have definitely had more support and more people behind it. I'm still at a bit of a loss as to why that didn't go ahead. But I'll stop my questions as of there.
You're muted, Kathy. Kathy, you're muted.
Sorry. God. Okay, I did want to mention that staff corrected me. Our approval of the project, the one that we're correcting now was at the April 19th meeting. I said May 3rd, and that was an error. So, okay, Dirk, you had some comments, and Chris, maybe you had your hand up. I'm not sure, but Dirk.
I think, yeah, my only comment was that, to me, a referendum, there are obvious triggers for spending for a referendum, which this did not trigger. And then typically a referendum is for, does a community want a new indoor pool facility or not? That's where we would go to referendum to gauge community sentiment on a big expenditure. And this is not, it's not whether or not we need a city hall. Like Stuart said, we need a city hall. We've looked at all of the options, the costs, and this is the one that makes the most sense. The referendum wouldn't really answer anything. It would just say, well, don't do a new one, do an old one, which doesn't make sense in the long term. So it was, for me, it made more sense to go ahead. This is not a new recreational facility that we're gauging sentiment on. So it's different.
Okay, good point. Chris, you ready?
Yeah, and we look to operational costs again. Right now, we're paying an exorbitant amount of rent. If we were to run 2 buildings, that would be a huge cost to us, more than acceptable. And the efficiency in this building is going to run us, I believe, at a lower cost than what we experience now. And everything else that I was going to say, Stuart, was very eloquently said. Thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else of our guests here that wish to speak? I don't see any other hands raised. And any other counselors want to comment on what we've heard here? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. We've had our public input. I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. Hand raised, Dirk and Andy. Any comments on the agenda? And all in favor? Okay. Okay, we have just one item of business today, but it is a long one. And this is that we rescind the first couple of motions. There's 3 motions on the agenda. Do you guys want me to read them all, or can we have them in front of us? I don't know if the public wants us to read them all, but anyway, that we rescind the 3 motions. That one, that we were to the overall capital budget, that we approve the portion of the costs that were for the city hall, and that we authorize Lower Columbia Housing to enter into a contract for amending the contract price with Yellow Ridge. Those are the 3 that we are rescinding because they don't have the correct numbers in them. So can I have a mover for that? Okay, Chris and Dirk, any comments just on rescinding? We'll move on to what we're now adopting. No, all in favor? Okay, so we're back now to where we were on April 19th. So the next is that we consider these following updated motions, and we've got another 3 of those. So I will read these out. That council approve the overall capital budget, including land, for the construction of the Roslyn Midtown Mixed-Use Development Project at 1920 3rd Avenue in the amount of $16,063,433, exclusive of applicable taxes and subject to final project approval from BC Housing. Do I have a mover? Okay, we've got Andy and Stuart. Any discussion on this? We know that these numbers have changed because of the transcription error and the other costs that got added in. We also know it's still within the budget that we approved for our financial plan. Any comments? No. Okay, all in favor? Okay. The next one is that the City of Roslyn approve the portion of the costs in the overall capital budget, which includes both the shell space and the tenant improvement costs for the City Hall portion of the overall project in the amount of $3,369,442. That is including the land, but exclusive of applicable taxes. Do I have a mover? Okay, Dirk, and a seconder? Chris, okay. Any comments here? This is the same issue with the transcription. Yes, Dirk.
I think it's a little disconcerting that a clerical error resulted in an increase in funds. I know that is nerve-wracking for us and for the community. So it's hopefully that they're a little tighter on that going forward.
Yeah, but remember, it's also the change from a 2.9% interest to a 3.3% interest, which we can't control until this is fixed. We don't set those interest rates. And also that there was the $155,000 property transfer tax, which was, we were notified of that later on the housing portion, and the Housing Society is trying to work with BC Housing on that. So I absolutely agree that it is unfortunate that there was this, transcription error. I mean, honestly, it's like dyslexia, right? And that's unfortunate, but this is where we are today. So any other comments? All in favor? Okay. Stuart, you're not opposed, are you? You're frozen. I think you're frozen. Okay. Well, we were unanimous on this last time, so I'm going to have to assume that you're still with us. Okay, and the third one is that City of Roslyn authorizes the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society to enter into a CCDC-5B contract through the amending Article A8 contract price with Yellow Ridge Construction for the full scope of work, including related City Hall costs and improvements in the amount of $12,693,991, exclusive of taxes and subject to the final project approval with from BC Housing. Mover. Come on, guys. Okay, Chris and Andy, any comments there? No, all good. Okay. All right, call the question. All in favor? All right. And with this meeting getting underway, and the project will be set to begin very shortly. And this was a housekeeping meeting that we needed to have, unfortunately. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to the public for joining us. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.